Chapter 3. At 25, Marnie had grown wise. Looking through the transparent, icy divide between the present and the past, she still saw the confused and lonely girl, and understood how she'd become such a desolate adult. Memories of empty roads and the lines of hearses carrying the victims of the invisible and silent choker stood out in her mind. The microscopic monsters had taken the lives of the vulnerable, mostly adults, the elderly, weak, sick, and disadvantaged. In the aftermath, the financially and spiritually crushed society was powerless to rise against the exploitative leaders of the one-party state, who imposed restrictions long after they were necessary and continued to trace the movements of all remaining adults. Concentrating on the tiniest details of her microscopic world had blurred Marnie's vision. Stretching, she glanced around and saw Conran, her part-time lab technician, cleaning down the surfaces. He felt her gaze and smiled in her direction. "Don't you have anything better to do?" she said, flicking her plaits back over her shoulder. "I'm pandering to your OCD boss," he said sarcastically. "Keeping everything in order, just the way you like it." Marnie narrowed her eyes and peered at him through her goggles. "I'm not that bad." The tall, skinny man flicked his mop of blonde hair from his face. He was always busy in a rush, as he'd been brought up expecting to be struck down at any moment. Marnie considered reminding him to keep his hair tied back while working in the lab. Instead, she said, "How are the studies going? I hear you want to be an archaeologist." "I want to do something which offers more, expands the mind away from psychopathic viruses and germs. The past might hold clues to our future." His dark blue eyes sparkled. "I doubt you will escape heartbreak. It seems to be found everywhere," she said, regretting denting his enthusiasm when his face dropped. Conran's personality was directly opposite to her dour pessimism. He was an optimist, and occasionally displayed endearing, sarcastic humour. Besides, viruses aren't all bad. You have them in your DNA, and some believe they are partly to do with why we're conscious. I've heard all the arguments about them dropping from space, panspermia. I think I have a better chance of happiness searching for lost treasures. I prefer to view things from a distance rather than up close, focusing on the substantial rather than the infinitely small. They're not even alive, are they? Not really, not until they enter a cell. Do you know anything about them, like where they come from? We understand some things, how they unlock cells and how they mutate, but other than that, surprisingly little. I think that's what I like, the detective work, the trying to solve a mystery. Marnie rarely spoke with anyone on a social level. Most people had remained frightened of the company. Their united suffering had made them cautious, leading to gaps in conversation and distance in behaviour. "You're still searching for the miracle cure, a drug that will wipe out the whole host of our enemy," Conran said, approaching until he was a step away from intruding on her personal space. The nasty little demons which ripped families apart. Marnie saw that he wanted to connect and make eye contact, so she avoided his attention and resumed her position, staring at the colourful enemy on the screen of the electron microscope. "Marnie, you should stop hiding now that the horror has passed. We all need to heal. Try looking at me," he said, chuckling nervously. "I'm not so ugly." Marnie smiled directly at him without saying a word and raised a questioning eyebrow. She was about to allow her gaze to drop when she noticed beads of sweat on his forehead, and only one thought crossed her mind. Is he ill? "I was going to ask you out for dinner," he said, turning his back and strolling away to resume his task. "As a friend, of course. But if you want to stay in your prison forever, that's fine by me." Marnie thought of all those who'd been unable to repel the invaders, the ones she'd loved who succumbed so suddenly to the illness, and felt a pang of pity. "Okay then, I accept your invitation." Only the leaders had permission to use cars, so after work, Conran encouraged her to climb onto the back seat of his bike while he rode standing. They left the surreal world of viruses and death behind and rode towards the beach under the afternoon sun. Marnie, not used to the outdoors, was apprehensive and almost crippled with anxiety. The whole world was shimmering, and dizzying colours splashed out at her from all directions. The fluttering wings of birds and insects were alarming, but when the bike came to a stop, the chorus of their songs on the breeze was enchanting. Conran grabbed her hand. Marnie flinched a little, but he was persistent, pulling her over the slippery grass and into sinking dunes. She'd seen pictures in books, but this was the first time she'd tasted the damp, salty air and had a gritty breeze blowing into her eyes. Marnie had limped through the days of confinement and then chosen to remain in her inner dungeon, fearing what lay beyond. Against her will, Conran was forcing her to live. Everything opened above and below. There it was, the glittering brilliance of a deep turquoise sea spilling over the sand. Marnie stood, wondering and fearing, while beside her, Conran was resolute and firmly anchored, his back straight, his face upturned to the wind, so that his straggly hair blew behind him like comets' tails. He released his grip and held his arms up as if embracing a god. A trickling activity circulated the fire below as people collected driftwood and rolled logs into place for seating. The blur of the movement grew as the couple approached. Marnie licked her dry lips nervously. She hadn't been amongst so many people in one go for as far back as she could remember, if ever. "Come and meet the other inmates," Conran said, running ahead. It had been drummed into Marnie that close contact was dangerous. Fixing her eyes on the warm haven, she cautiously moved closer. A young girl came up to her with an open bottle of beer, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Never had she needed a drink so badly. Later, after working her way through a good number of drinks, she found herself sitting on a log, watching. Darkness spread, and the stars popped into the sky. Conran, sitting beside her, introduced her to his friends, an even mixture of about 20 young men and women. "They're all students from my university, a generation seeking revolution and solidarity," he smiled, his perfect white teeth flashing in the firelight. "Don't worry. We are all safe survivors, and we have proof on our apps that we're free of the virus. We know we're not contaminated, but we've all removed our tracking chips." The young girl known as Joy held out her arm to show Marnie her scar. "You should be okay tonight, but if you want to come again, you'll need to cut yours out." "There will be other viruses," Marnie said bravely. "That one has gone, but it's only a matter of time before another one migrates from animals to humans. Marnie is searching for the ultimate miracle cure which will wipe out anything that thinks we're suitable hosts," Conran interjected. "For the time being, we're not under siege," a dishevelled man called George said as he tried to get a strand of hair out from between his lips. "We need to play together for a while. Return to and re-examine the world our grandparents took for granted." "My mother said when their familiar and normal life collapsed, draconian measures were brought in," Millie said. "They were only supposed to be enforced for the duration of the sickness, but they were kept in place to keep people safe." "It's time for something new," added a rotund youth, Aidan, who was dishing out bowls of steaming stew from a cauldron hanging over flames. "They tell us it was nature or the gods cleaning up the planet, restoring it to the state it was before humans destroyed their home. But there is an alternate scenario. Others think the disease was man-made, an attempt by world leaders to clean the earth of all the unwanted detritus." "The seal is broken," Joe added. "We're free, and we intend to stay that way. These people don't fear what lies beyond. They live in the minute. Perhaps I should stop worrying." Marnie's thoughts strayed as they all continued to debate their new ideas. She thought of Shadow, her old friend who now only came in moments of greatest need, and of the other issues she tried to keep hidden from the world. Then her mind wandered to the creepy house of her childhood, and the creature which lay hidden within its walls, a memory she'd pushed out of reach for most of her adult life. "Liberty!" shouted a boy with a French accent who picked up a guitar and began singing. The lyrical voice was later replaced with angry thumping from a speaker. Marnie wanted to abandon the girl who had spent her life questioning and exploring, and one by one the youths got up to dance, kick and scream. An overwhelming desire to join them sent her jumping to her feet. They followed every instinct, linked arms into a stamping chain, leapfrogged each other and partied deliriously. There was no vanity or cruelty. The fear had dropped from their eyes, and Marnie captured looks of pure happiness in their smiling faces. A hand tapped her shoulder, and on turning, she fell into Conran's arms. He planted a deep, longing kiss on her lips, and they melted together. For a moment, she was unsure if he was a part of her or if she existed within him. She hadn't realised how much her empty arms had ached to be wrapped around another human. They dropped together, leaving indentations in the sand alongside many others. To hug was fantastic, and that is all they did, hugging as though it was the most important action in the world.
Thank you for listening. This story is to be continued. Please like and subscribe.